Ohio State opens up its Big Ten schedule on the road against Washington. It's the first time they've been up to Seattle since 2007, and the first time they've played Washington since closing out the 2018 season in the Rose Bowl, which was Ryan Day's last game. Not as the head coach, I'm Stephen Means, and that's Stefan Krajisnik. Ohio State's availability report doesn't come out for another 90 minutes, but we're not really expecting anything too crazy to show up on there based on there's just no reason to think that they're going to be missing any key players in this game. But on Washington's standpoint, Stefan, they have already been without one of their key players, Takario Davis, one of their two large cornerbacks, who did not play in the Apple Cup after leaving the UC game with an injury. And Pete Thamel is reporting that he is doubtful to play on Saturday against the Buckeyes. That's a pretty big blow for a secondary and a passing defense that has already been a little shaky. Right, I think that's the best way to put it, especially when you look at some of the teams they've played. They haven't played a top 100 passing offense yet, and yet teams have been able to move the ball. Is this more of a reason to, if Ryan Day handled the Texas game where it was keep the training wheels on Julian Sand, don't put Julian Sand in harm's way, is this even more of a reason for why Ohio State should just let it fly on Saturday when they take the field at 3:30?
Unleash. Let it rip. I mean, this is why these are the type of games that Brian Hartline has built his room for, right? When you have such a striking advantage over another team in an area, you have to jump on that, right? And as much as it's funny because we've spent a lot of time the last 2 weeks talking about the running back room and, do you play Bo Jackson more? Do you start Bo Jackson? How do you, you don't want to give up on James Peoples and C.J. Donaldson, obviously. So how do you maybe keep all three guys in rhythm? And there's so much talk about running backs. You got to ride your receivers today and go win with those receivers today because we've seen a lot of 12, 13 personnel. I think Ohio State spreads it out. I think I said on our outrageous predictions, Brandon Inniss is going to have a big game. And I understand the injury to Davis kind of points to Carnell or JJ, really going off and popping off. I think Washington's going to have to focus so much on slowing those two guys down that we're going to be like, oh, there's Brandon Inniss running wide open again, right? Like the safeties know they're going to have to be leaning toward JJ and Carnell. And I just think there's going to be a lot of opportunities for Brandon Inniss in this one. So whether you want to talk about the best receiver in college football, whether you want to talk about the number 2 receiver on Ohio State's roster who's going to be maybe a first-round pick in a few months here, or you want to talk about Brandon Inniss, I think this is a game where Ohio State says, Julian saying, we trust you. You've earned our trust. Here's everything on your plate. You win this game for us in Washington. Not by being superb, not by being Superman. We say it all the time. Ohio State quarterbacks don't have to be Superman, but they have to make the routine plays routinely. And there's going to be some shots, some stuff across the middle of the field that Julian Saint's going to have opportunities. And these Ohio State receivers are going to be ready to take advantage of that. We did it on the preview show. I think this Washington team is good and loaded at a lot of positions that matter, and is going to put up some points on Ohio State today. I think that's going to happen. I just don't know how this Washington defense can slow down Ohio State's offense because of the injuries, because of the lack of talent at certain areas where Ohio State has superb talent. It's going to be difficult to slow them down. And if there's any training wheels on Julian Saint today, I'd be shocked.
I just think they need to approach this game the way they approach the entire college football playoff.
Yeah.
Be aggressive, and it'll open up everything else, right? Establish their passing attack, and it'll establish the run. And I know that's backwards thinking for what we have known football to be, but that's what works for Ohio State. Everybody's already scared of your passing attack. So validate those fears. And then go from there and see where it takes you, right? We saw that during the playoff where they established JJ, they established Emeka, and it got Travion and Quinshawn going. Okay, establish JJ, establish Carnell, and it should get Bo Jackson or James Peoples or C.J. Donaldson, whoever else you want to throw it back there. You want to put Isaiah West back there? Put it back there. But it'll open up those guys. But I think for me, because you're talking about Washington's offense, and it is potent. It is explosive. They do have 3 guys in Damon Williams and Jonah Coleman and Denzel Boston who can get some things done for you. I think you should put pressure on that offense, and the best way to do that is score. What we saw the first 2 college football playoff games when Ohio State took the ball first, and they went down and scored, and it put a lot of pressure on Tennessee and Oregon to respond, because I've always said this, one of the worst places you can be against Ohio State is you're down by 7 points and Ohio State has the ball. Because then if you go down 14 points, it just drastically changes how you have to play against them. Because that means they're not going to stop throwing the points at you, and you got to react to that, and you got to respond to that. So if they take the ball first, go down there and score, and then get a stop, and now they're in a position to go up 14-0 early in the game, I mean, they were like that last time they came to the Pacific Northwest and played Oregon. They just didn't capitalize on it, obviously, because Quinshon Judkins fumbled. But take the same approach. Take the ball, take the crowd out of it early, going down there and scoring, pushing the ball down the field, vertically, horizontally, RPOs, whatever you want to do. But get those two receivers involved right now and test the secondary, who potentially might be without its best cornerback. And Avicii's Price is pretty good as well. But test these corners, test this secondary, see how good it is, and you might be able to push the ball around the field all day. And then you can establish your running attack.
Yeah, and looking back to that game at Oregon last year, Oregon was a much better team than this Washington team is, obviously. Yeah. But the biggest thing for Ohio State, at least when they kind of self-scouted, is they made mistakes on their own part, right? Foolish penalties, fumble, as you mentioned, Will Howard at the end of the game, the OPI against Jeremiah Smith. I mean, you can just go kind of up and down the list of ways that Ohio State shot itself in the foot. And you can maybe afford a couple of those mistakes today and still be able to win against this Washington team, but you can't afford a lot of them, right? Because you have to, as you kind of talk about there, like kind of step on Washington's throat and don't give them opportunities. Don't let this crowd get into it. Don't make mistakes to get into your own way. I think that's the biggest thing for this Ohio State team. Maybe that. So saying that, would you agree? Ohio State, as long as they don't make mistakes, they're not going to get in their own way in this game. That's the biggest thing.
Probably, yeah.
Does that? So let's go back to the running back conversation. Does that make you wonder if there is some ball security issues or whatever it may be that maybe had some questions about Bo Jackson early on? I said I think CJ probably starts this game just because they want to lean on experience. Does that make you agree, or do you stay on your stance that Bo Jackson starts and he's just kind of the number one running back in this game?
If I was at like a 7 out of 10 Bo Jackson, actually more like an 8.5 out of 10 that Bo Jackson starts on Saturday. Maybe I'm more out of 4.5 now, just because I think a couple of days it's worn off a little bit. I don't know if it's going to be CJ. It still might be James Peoples, but I think what's going to end up happening, regardless of who starts, is you got three guys, and whoever gets rolling, that's who plays that day. I don't think there is a. It's not easy to have three running backs get healthy carries. Right. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to roll those guys early, and whoever's got the hot hand, I think Carlos Lachlan is going to stick with that guy. I don't. Bo Jackson fumbled in the game, and so now it's validated. Oh, maybe he does have a ball security issue. I don't think it's an issue yet, but it also is something that I guess you might have to keep a true freshman on a short leash today. But at the same time, if he maximizes your offense, then he maximizes your offense, man, because on the other end of the field, other sideline, they have guys who can be explosive. We know Ohio State has guys who can be explosive in the passing game. Bo Jackson right now is the only guy who's proven to be explosive in the run game. So if the fumble against Grambling was fluke, and Ryan Day is just talking about ball security because that's what he talks about and taking care of the ball, maybe you're right, he doesn't start, but I still think Bo Jackson ends up with the most carries by the end of the game.
I can
That's
see
probably
that.
the best way to look at it.
If you go on some of the betting apps, at least the one I was looking at this morning, Bo Jackson's actually got the best odds of any of the running backs to score touchdowns. So it's clear that the apps are kind of catching on to the Bo Jackson wave and thinking that he's going to get some opportunities in this game. Brandon Inniss, by the way, saw him at plus 600. Maybe that's unsolicited betting advice, but I maintain that Brandon Inniss is going to have a big game. So if you want to trust me, trust that. One more thing I want to mention too, the tight ends. I think it's interesting because we've seen a lot of Max Clare and Will Kazmarek. Obviously, we've seen some of the other guys, play a good amount as well. But, those are the top two. I think the nature of this game, we're going to see less, two tight end sets, right? I think we're going to see Brandon Inniss on the field quite a bit. I think we're going to see these receivers. So I feel like there's two routes we can go with this. Do we see a lot of Max Clare because they see opportunities to just go in the passing game? Or are you Ohio State and you say, hey, I know my three wide receivers are going to get open, play a lot of Will Kazmarek, have him help block, have him maybe sneak out, catch a pass or two. But which way do you go? Do you go Max Clare on the field a lot, full throttle, basically four receivers? Or do you go, we know our three receivers get open, Will Kazmarek, you help block, because that Washington has had some success just with four-man rush, and lean on Will Kazmarek and say, hey, I trust my three receivers.
I think Will Kazmarek has reached a point on this team where he can't come off the field. I think if we did a 10 most valuable people on Ohio State's football team, I think he is on the list. pretty firmly on the list because blocking is more important than receiving when you have receivers like this. I'll push back on the 12 idea though, in that Jim Knowles called it fake 12, and that's what they ran in the Big 12 a lot, is when you have two tight ends, but one of them is really just a glorified receiver.
Slot receiver.
I think we see that. Like if it's 12, but it's Max Clare lined up in the slot and not just on the inline there, and it's actual. But I'm with you. I think they're gonna spread it out. There's what you do when you're tinkering with your lineup against a MAC opponent, and then there's what you do when you're playing on the road in the Big Ten game. One of those games you can figure out what you have. The other game you need to go with what you already know and just lock in and win the football game, and you can spend the practice figuring out what you have there. But I don't think you're off base here. That I feels like we've been seeing Ohio State play in a phone booth the last couple of weeks as they've been tinkering with things and all these tight end lineups. Okay, now it's time to spread it out and go win a football game because you're trying to go win the Big Ten for the first time since 2020. Get the text 614-350-3315. It is 9:01 Pacific time, which means that if this were 3 weeks ago, Lee Corso would be putting on a helmet. I'd be putting on a mascot head, but he's not with us anymore. I am sitting here watching ESPN, and I do love that they leaned into the whiteout. Everybody has all white on, and then there's Nick Saban in the Nittany Lion mascot thing. This is hilarious. I love this. But
he did have the all white before that.
Okay. Nick Saban's personality is showing, and it's like, oh, this is why you got all those recruits, because you were really good at coaching, but also you're really easy to get along with there. So games are getting ready to start, which means we're going to get out of here and go get on a train and get to Husky Stadium early to check out the scenery. Maybe we might go sailgating before the game. Probably not. But listen,
we're not wearing all white.
No, we're not. Did the text 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Ohio State's availability report comes out in about 90 minutes, and we'll have that information there, plus anything we see or hear ahead of Ohio State's Big Ten opener against Washington. So for Stefan Krajisnik, I'm Steve.